So we'll be in Genesis 36 briefly, and then going into 37. You'll see we're going to run through 36 pretty fast and get into the story of Joseph. Before that, though, I want you to go to Proverbs 14. We might have touched on this proverb before, but I want to touch on it because it's right at the heart of what we're going to talk about today. Proverbs 14 in verse 30. It reads, "A tranquil heart is life to the body, but jealousy or envy is rottenness to the bones." You have the contrast again, like Proverbs always does. You've got a tranquil heart. It's a heart at peace. There's a calm there, and it's life to the body. Why is a tranquil heart life to the body? What's the relationship between a peaceful heart, which in the Hebrew mind was also a peaceful mind? If you have a peaceful spirit, a peaceful heart, why is that tranquil to the body? Or life to the body? Why is that life to the body?
Stress-free.
What's that?
Less stress.
Less stress. What does stress do to the body, by the way? I know you guys haven't experienced that yet, but some people say there's a relationship between stress and bodily aches. What sorts of things can happen to the body? You got an elevated blood pressure, start getting some headaches, maybe not sleeping too well. What else?
Tension.
Yeah, tension. Anybody get like lots of tension in your shoulders, your neck? You start having some back pain. One side of your body starts getting off and the other misalignment. All that stuff starts happening. What's that? Anxious, anxiety, start worrying more. Little things become big things. You kind of wonder why certain things you reacted the way you did. You didn't used to do that. You're sleeping less. Right? There's a symbiotic relationship between the inner life and the external body. They work together. So the proverb says a tranquil heart is life to the body. That's the goal. How do I get a tranquil heart? Well, here's what you don't do. Jealousy or envy is rottenness to the bones. It goes all the way straight to the frame of the human being, the bones. What is this?
Foundation.
It's the foundation, right? It's your bone structure. Why is envy or rottenness a contrast to a tranquil heart? It's rottenness to the bones. What's happening?
You're desiring something that you shouldn't necessarily desire to the degree it just becomes your God.
And where does that desire reside?
It's our longing for our self-will, our self thing we selfishly want.
That's right. It's in the heart, isn't it, Dwayne? It's in our spirit. It's in our heart. It's in our mind. We think about it all the time. You know, the United States is if you did a survey of the 7 deadly sins around the world, and you want to attach certain of the deadly sins, gluttony, anger, lust, envy, pride, all these, I think for sure the U.S. would get tagged with envy. That we are a haves and haves not country. We are a country that looks around and sees what the neighbor's driving, where they're living, what they got. Why do they keep getting more and more and more, and I keep getting less and less and less? And everybody just has this comparison game, isn't it? It's a comparison country. We're all in the ecosystem. We're all looking around. And if all you did is stop and look at yourself and compared yourself to past generations, compared yourself to 99% of the world, how would you be doing? Everyone in this room, how would you be doing? You making more than $2 a day? Okay, you're better than Africa. How about that? Let's start in Africa, right? You making more than $4 a day? Great, you're better than China. Right? You're better than 1 billion people right there. And yet, that's not where we live. I don't live in Africa, Walter. I live on, Eureka Street, and I haven't hit Eureka yet. And I want more, and it's not fair. And this guy got a promotion, and I've been there 9 years. He's been there 4 years, and he got the promotion, and that's not fair. Why didn't they give me the promotion, right? And this person has sold this much, and I've only sold this much, and I'm doing the same thing he is. What gives? And we begin to live and get this thing rooted in us, and it just stirs in us. And it's what starts on the inside begins to work itself on the outside. And it goes from our heart, it goes to our body, and if you're not careful, it can sometimes go beyond the body. And now it can go to the way that we act and treat people. and the way we hurt people. Isn't that true? I think of when I see this proverb, and we're about to see this in spades in Genesis 37, I think of that classic scene in Gladiator. When, remember, Marcus Aurelius realizes it's time for him to pass his authority down. And he's got two choices. Remember the two choices he's got? Maximus, something Decidius. He had Maximus, and then he had his son Commodus. And he's talking to Maximus. Maximus, remember, just comes back from war. All he wants to do is what? Remember, what is all Maximus wants to do now is what? Just go home, man. I've been fighting for the emperor, for the empire all these years. He just wants to go home. And Marcus Aurelius says, Maximus, I have one more thing of you. He says, ask it. Ask it. What is it? I need you to take over Rome. I need you to make sure the Senate gets the power back and we become a republic again. Remember that? And what was Maximus' response to that? Remember what he says?
Not me.
Not me. No, not me. And he says, that's why it has to be you. And then he asked that question, what of Commodus, your son? He's the one that should be the natural heir. Remember? What was what was Marcus's problem with Commodus, his son? He's not a moral man. You remember the line. He's not a moral man. He doesn't have temperance, doesn't have wisdom, prudence. These classical virtues. And he says, you, Maximus, you're the one. Right? You're the one that I have to give it to. And so he says, I'll talk to him. And remember, Marcus goes and talks to Commodus. And he tells him, pretty much, I will be passing Rome to Maximus, not you. And how does he handle that?
No.
Remember what he says? What does he say to him? Before he suffocates him, what does he say to him?
I have virtues.
I have virtues also. They may not be the virtues that you admire, but I have virtues like ambition and passion, right?
And murderous envy.
And murderous envy. And he's so covered in grief. Remember that scene? You just see the pain that all he wanted to do, all Commodus longed for was what? To have the honor and the love and the acceptance of his father, right? And he weeps and he grabs his father in grief. And as he begins to squeeze his father, he just then, all of a sudden, that envious heart turns into the murderous heart and he suffocates him, right? And and there's the whole movie. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. It's been around a long time. But that is the picture of man right there. It's like what starts on the inside then takes manifestation on the outside of our bodies. And then from that, if we're not careful, it can really affect and impact the people around us to the point of total destruction. So let's go now to Genesis 36 and 37. We just finished, when the author, I believe Moses, wrote the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books, as he's going through Genesis, he's ordering material. He's putting material together in a certain way to tell the story. And so it is mostly chronological, but every once in a while you'll have chronology kind of moved around. And that's just how ancient history was written a lot of times, because ancient history was written thematically. They're trying to tell a story. And they would use chronology when they needed to, but sometimes they would change the chronology out. You go to Matthew and Luke. When you go to the temptation account, the 3 temptations when Jesus is being tempted by the serpent, Matthew and Luke change the order of the temptations of what Satan says to Jesus. Now, to a modern person who's reading that, they might go, oh my gosh, there's an inaccuracy in the Bible. That's not the order that it was done. Matthew says it was 1, 2, 3. Luke says it was 1, 3, 2. Which one's right? And that's the wrong question. It's not the question they're asking. The reason they do that is because Luke is setting something else up that Matthew wasn't setting up within the story. So chronology in the Bible is used when it needs to be used, but they're not bound by a chronology. And so what you have is at the end of 35, you've got the death of Isaac. But you're going to have Isaac alive again in the story, because you're going to see the story of Joseph now being sold into slavery, into prison, and then later Isaac is alive in the story, right? So I don't want that to kind of freak you out when you see, wait a minute, I thought Isaac died. He's alive again. It's the way the history was written oftentimes. So you get into this one chapter that a lot of times you look at 36 and go, why is 36 here? You have this incredible chapter of this transition. You've got the death of Rachel. You've got the death of Isaac. Transition goes now to Jacob's sons. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 36, you've got Esau's family tree. Now, why would you have that? Why would you have an entire chapter dedicated to Esau, the non-covenantal child? Any thoughts, for those of you who read ahead, any thoughts why you'd get an entire chapter on Esau's entire, the tribes and the kings and everything that flowed out of Esau? If you go, what's that? Just to put an end to it? Possibly. I think there's another reason, Kevin. If you go to Genesis 17 real quick, go to your left, let me show you one promise that God gave Abraham. Look at Genesis 17. And you get to verse 6. And God says to Abraham, look at this, I will make you extremely fruitful and will make nations and kings come from you. It was part of the promise that God gave Abraham. It wasn't going to be just through his covenant line. It was going to be through all of his progeny, that nations and kings would flow from Abraham. And I think what the Bible does is the Bible really loves to show you that God did what he said he's going to do. Are you glad, by the way, that God does what he says he's going to do, right? And if God promises it, the Bible guarantees you it's going to be done. And in 36, as one of the children, you see that this is showing you even the non-covenantal child, God is going to bless. He's going to protect Esau, and he's going to flourish into a nation. And so you have right here, these are the family records of Esau. That is Edom. Esau was the father of the Edomites, the entire Edomite people. That's also going to introduce us to a people that the Israelites are going to stumble against. It's going to be people that are going to be antagonistic to Israel. And so it says Esau took his wives and the Canaanite women, and he begins to walk through this whole list of his wives and the children and all that they experienced, all the blessing, the wealth. And then you get down, look at verse 12, just to show you another example here. Timnah, a concubine of Esau's son Eliphaz, bore Amalek to Eliphaz. Guess who that's going to become? The Amalekites. These are going to be the first people that after Israel goes through the Exodus, the Amalekites are going to be the people that resist them right off the bat. So you have the introduction of the people that will be the antagonists to Israel. So you've got both the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham, and you have the beginnings of letting you know, where did these people come from? These Amalekites that seem to be so problematic for Israel. Where did they come from? They came from Esau's lineage. Same with the Edomites. And if you go down, verse 31, let me show you one more thing. It says, these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites. Very interesting phrase. They're making the point that Esau received blessing and wealth way before Israel ever even got land, before they even entered into the land. So here's Jacob and his sons hearing the promises of God, that we're going to give you this land, you're going to become this great people. And now they're watching Esau. And what's Esau's line doing? What are they experiencing?
Blessing.
Tons of blessing. And they're probably sitting back wondering, man, we're still nomads. We're still wandering around. And here is Esau, and here are all of Esau's people. And they're living in this land of Seir. And they're thriving. They're flourishing as people. What is happening to us? Why hasn't God acted? You guys ever ask that question, by the way? Why hasn't God acted yet? Right. You know, sometimes people ask that question. Do you know that, Chad? Yep. You go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis and you wonder, is God going to do anything? You ever wondered that, Chad? Yep. Is God going to show up on this one? You sit back and you see all these other people flourishing, and you wonder how they flourishing. They don't even go to Friday morning Bible study. How's he driving that? How's he got that car? How's he living over there? He doesn't even go to Benchmark. He doesn't even go to Den Bible. Right? God didn't even go to church, and he's flourishing. What's going on, God? It's kind of how it is. And God loves to play the waiting game, because before God elevates, right, God always forms and shapes a person before he elevates them. That's the path of God. Before Paul could go on his first journey, missionary journey, it was 14 years from the time he had an encounter with Jesus to the time he went on his first missionary journey. 14 years of preparation. That formation always has to precede elevation. Can you be blessed too soon? Britt, was there ever a time that if you got blessed financially way too soon, it would have done you in? Yeah, maybe even today. Yeah. There has got to be a maturity that has to exist to handle great blessing. Right? Do y'all know that? If you have a lot of blessing too soon, you're Justin Bieber. You just ruin everything along the way until your life is just destroyed, and suddenly you see Jesus at the end of the line. And then what do? You play, what was the big event he played? The World Cup, right? Justin Bieber comes out at the World Cup to sing, and he doesn't have the whole lights and pyrotechnics and stuff up there. He walks out onto the field with just him and his guitar. And do you know the song he played? He could have sang Baby, Baby. I don't know Justin Bieber songs. He could have sung any song he wanted. And what does he sing? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And he just worships the Lord with 1 billion people watching. And that's his song. And he takes his guitar and he turns around and he walks off all by himself back underneath the stadium seats. That's what you do. Right? He would never have done that had it not been all that happened prior to him in his life. It took a life of carnage and wreckage and great blessing all mixed together for him to finally do what he did. I love it. That's the life of every man, if you consent to it. You don't fight against it. You yield to these things, and you don't get a heart of envy. So that's chapter 36, right? God's promises prevail, they remain. You be patient. He is with you. Hang in there. Now we get to 37. Verse 1, Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. These are the family records of Jacob. Now we're back to the covenant line of God. God says, now let me go back to what I really promised to everybody. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. Now, when you get to Genesis 41, right around there, this is where Jacob gets elevated before Pharaoh. And if you know the story, he has to go through a lot of stuff before he gets to that point. He's 17 here. He's 30 years when he finally stands before Pharaoh. How many years is that? I know it's early. Yeah, good job. 13 years. 13 years. Now, I said Jacob, Joseph. 13 years, Joseph is being formed and shaped and being prepared for the day that he will stand before Pharaoh. And he's going to have to go through a lot that's unjust. Now, a lot of times people, when they teach Joseph's life, most do this. They look at Joseph, and I've even heard people say, Joseph is the only person in the Bible that you don't see any sin in his life. No, not because he's sinless, they just don't record any sin in his life. Joseph is this picture of Jesus that suffers unjustly, gets pulled out of the prison, gets elevated to the highest level, and people do this typology of Joseph's life, like Joseph is this complete picture of who Jesus is. I think there's elements of Joseph's life that are meant to reflect the life of Christ, like all of us. But Joseph is a 17-year-old kid, and he's going to have to go through some real challenges because God is preparing him for leadership. He's going to be the leader of a great nation that's not his nation. He's going to be entrusted with great authority. And yet there's something in Joseph's life that's going to have to be refined. See, one of the problems Joseph has is he is born with a silver spoon. He's going to be born with favoritism. Not that it was his fault. His father confers on him such incredible favoritism, overt favoritism, that Joseph has to carry the weight of that with his brothers. So he's 17, he's serving, he's tending the sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And look at this. And he brought a bad report about them to their father. He's looking at his brothers working the field, and we don't know what it is, but Joseph goes and tells his father on his brothers. What do you think about that, by the way? Do you think a kid knows when his brothers don't like him? What do you think? You think you know when there's tension, when there's division, when there's jealousy, when there's envy? You think Joseph knew that? I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think Joseph knew. He had his father's favor. And as a 17-year-old kid whose brain is still developing, how did that probably feel to him? That feels really good that Daddy likes me more than he likes you. Huh? What did you get for Christmas? You know what Daddy got me? That's how it was. It was overt. And so he goes and we don't know if it was wise or unwise. I tend to view this, just in my own perspective, as the Bible showing that I think Joseph might be a little bit of a tattletale. I think he's taken some pride in thinking about how good he is. If you ever studied the Enneagram, he's a type 1. He's the dutiful, good child. Always did right, never does wrong, always pleased his father, always pleased his mother. If he ever made a mistake, he's hard on himself, harder on himself than anybody else. He's the one that demands everyone around him do life in a certain way. And if you don't, they don't do well. Right? That's Joseph. And his brothers aren't playing well. They're not doing something the way he thinks they ought to be doing it. So what does he do? What does a good little type 1 do?
Run to Daddy.
Let me go run to higher authorities. Let me run to Daddy and tell him, Daddy, you should see what they're doing out there. They're eating your crops. Okay? They're not working real hard. Right? And now you get here and you see what happens. Now Israel, Jacob, loved Joseph more than his other sons because Joseph was a son born to him in his old age. And he made a long-sleeved robe for him. This is the famous, where you always hear about it being what?
Robe of many colors.
Multicolored robe. Actually, in translation, we don't know if that's really what it was. But what we do know is it was a special robe that stood out. It was noticeable. So think about that, man. You got all these brothers, and your dad gives you the special robe. How would you feel, by the way? Does that remind you of somebody, by the way, in the New Testament? Any brother get a robe that no one else got? Remember the prodigal son? He comes back, give him my ring, give him my sandals, give him my robe, kill the fatted calf. Meanwhile, the older brother, who's dutifully served, what's he feel, by the way? What emotion does he feel?
Anger.
Envy, which leads to anger. Right? He detests his brother. It's the same thing. This is what's happening with the brothers. They see that Joseph gets this thing, and look what happens. When his brothers saw that their father loved him, you should underline this or circle it. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. What's happening in the hearts of these brothers? What are they feeling? By the way, what are these brothers like by and large? Are these good guys? No. You know that Jacob probably looked at his sons and saw the things that, I mean, what did they just get through doing? Simeon and Levi. Destroying an entire people, an entire town, and plundering it. And I don't think any of the brothers had any problem with it. They probably all partook of the plundering. And I'm sure Jacob was looking at that and going, what has happened to my sons? I've got one last son left. He's still young enough to make a difference. And I love him more than all the others. He's Rachel's, the woman I've always loved, but he's my youngest. And I'm gonna favor him because he's different than the rest of these boys. And these kids knew it. They knew it. They could not stand Joseph. Joseph had never messed up. Look what happens. Then Joseph had a dream. I love it. When he told it to his brothers, did it say, and the Lord saith unto Joseph, go and telleth your brothereth this dream. Does this say that?
Nope.
Who is this dream to? Joseph. This is a dream that God gave Joseph for Joseph. Why do you think Joseph tells his brothers? Pride. See, I don't see anything else here. I mean, I know people want to make Joseph without any real taint or sin. I don't know where you get that. Here's this 17-year-old kid who gets a dream, and in this dream, look at this. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, my sheaf stood up, and it's just so great. And your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. Are you really going to reign over us? Our younger brother, you're 17 years old. You're going to reign over us? And he says, are you really going to rule over us? So they hated him. Look at this again. What? Even more. There's the progression. Because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, if that wasn't enough. And he told it to his brothers. Dwayne, why does he keep telling his brothers his dream?
I think to one up them, but it's also that degree of maturity. Because he keeps saying, behold, behold, I see this 17-year-old king going, look at this, look at this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a match of, I don't think he's spotless, but it's I'm going to one up these.
Yeah. I think he's so experienced his brother's rejection. Either he's trying to get their approval, like you heard from God. Maybe if you're being charitable, Joseph is trying to win the favor of his brothers by getting them to believe that God revealed something to him. The problem is what? It's what's being revealed. You're going to bow to me someday. Or it's because I think Joseph is so blind to it, he doesn't even see it. He's just saying, let me tell you what God just told me in a dream. He's not even using wisdom yet to know, are these the right people I should share this with? Look at this dream. Look, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. He told his father and brothers, and his father rebuked him. Jacob actually rebukes him for this. Why do you think he rebukes him? It's one thing for you to put yourself above your brothers, because I do that. I put you above your brothers. It's okay if you do that. But what? Do you know who I am? God spoke to me. I'm the one that God's given dreams to. I'm the one He's given promises to. And I'm going to bow to you, me and your mother. By the way, it can't be Rachel. Rachel's already passed. It's got to be who? It's got to be the matriarch of the family now. It would be Leah, most likely. And he says, am I and your mother and brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you? Here it is. Proverbs 14. His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Man, if you got a pen, underline that. What do you think that means? What's going on with Jacob? But his father kept this matter in his mind. Why? What do you think Jacob's thinking? Man, that's how God is. God's shown up to me and told me some crazy stuff. Could this be true? Could this be the lineage through Joseph from me to Joseph, is there something God is going to do here? And he kept it in the back of his mind. This could be true. He doesn't like that Joseph just lorded it over everybody, right? This, by the way, just as a little side note, if you've ever visited with Latter-day Saints, Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints historically has taught that Genesis 37 is the genealogical beginnings of Joseph Smith, that this Joseph and Joseph Smith are connected through genealogy. And that the brothers, when they take Joseph, which we're going to see, and they throw him in the pit, they decide they're going to let their father know that he was killed. So they dip his coat in blood. And the Mormon Church believes that a small piece, a small relic of that garment survived, that God preserved that garment. And that garment was the preservation of God's remnant. And that remnant someday would be this kid in Palmyra, New York, at 17 years of age, named Joseph, who would carry on from the Joseph of Egypt, and he would now become the Joseph of New York.
That is so clear from this text.
I'm just trying to connect the dots for you, Dwayne.
You connect that. It's clear. I see it.
Yeah. If you go to in the book of Alma, if you have a Book of Mormon at home, you want to look it up. If you go to the book of Alma, A-L-M-A, it's in chapter 24, you'll see this story recounted. And you'll see in the Book of Mormon wholesale chapters that are identical to the Old Testament. It was like copy and paste before it existed. Thousands and thousands of words and chapters are identical. The answer they'll give is not because Joseph Smith plagiarized the Old Testament. It's because God spoke the same revelation to the people in America that he did to the people in the old world, in Jerusalem. But he would take these stories and then he would then add to these stories and try to show a connection between the ancient times and the modern times. And Joseph Smith became the new prophetic linchpin between the two. That's kind of how it worked. But that's just a little side note there if you did not know that. And to this day, that's still taught. It's still taught. Verse 12. So right now, what do we have? You got a young man selected by God, Joseph. He's favored by his father. He gets two dreams. And by the way, the very dream of the sheath of Joseph's rising above all of his brothers, that will be fulfilled, right? Because all that is grain. And someday, in about 15 years from now, there will be a famine in the land. And when they come, it'll be actually 13 plus 7, 22 years. It was 2 years into the famine. 7 years of abundance, they stored up. 2 years into the famine, that's 9, plus the 13, 22 years from now. 22 years from right here, you will have and we'll see it when we get there, you will have the brothers come and bow down before Joseph, not knowing it's Joseph, begging for what?
Grain.
Begging for grain. Isn't that incredible? That's the dream. It's so specific. And they don't even realize it, that this is what's playing out. It's also interesting, by the way, Joseph has no idea what's ahead for him. Like God has a plan for him. There is a destination for Joseph's life. Joseph has no idea that in 13 years, he will be standing before the Pharaoh of Egypt. You imagine that? I love those stories. I remember hearing Marco Rubio. I've grown to really like Marco Rubio just as a person. And as I listened to his story, right, coming from Cuba, his family, and just listening to his story, I love hearing stories of these guys saying, I would never have ever guessed I would be the Secretary of State of the United States of America. I mean, just the fact that he could go back 10 years, 15 years prior and look at his life. And how could this kid, who's just trying to survive, who was underwater in debt. I mean, Marco Rubio has always struggled with personal financial debt, just trying to manage a business, manage a life, and just through time and just orchestration, this is where his life is. It's a great story. This is your story in many ways. Right? This is my story. That all that happened up until that point, you might scratch your head and go, man, what is this all about? How long is this got to last? But there's something ahead that none of us sees. We have no idea a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what circumstances will befall us. But what we do know is where I am today is the preparation ground. This is the ground of formation. Am I being obedient? Am I leaning in to what God is trying to teach me right now? In the good seasons and in the tough seasons. Verse 12. His brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. Israel, Jacob, says to Joseph, your brothers, you know, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready, I'm sending you to them. Go check on them, he's asking. Go check on them, see what they're doing. Hey, go see if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. All right? What an unfortunate role Joseph has got to be in. Go check on your brothers. I'm ready, Joseph replied. Then Israel says to him, go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing and bring word back to me. Why would Jacob, just connect the dots here, why would he have Joseph go do this at this point?
I didn't trust his sons.
He didn't trust his sons. Besides, whatever it was that Joseph shared with his father before, right, telling on him, must have been significant enough that Jacob's saying, hey, go check on them. Make sure those guys aren't horsing around. Make sure those guys aren't doing some bad things. So he goes, he sent him from the Hebron Valley and he went to Shechem. 15, a man found him there wandering in the field and asked him, what are you looking for? I'm looking for my brothers, Joseph said. Can you tell me where they're pasturing their flocks? They've moved on from here, the man said. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph sent out after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he had reached them, they plotted to kill him. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. I don't think all of a sudden, instantaneously, they all in that moment had the same thought. What was happening just before that? What do you think these guys are all talking about the entire time? I hate him. I hate you. I hate him too. Man, you know what I'd do? You know what I'd love to kill him. Me too. I'd love to, if we ever see him, I think they're just stirring it up. You guys ever stirred it up? Just worked it and worked it and worked it, and then the moment comes, and all of a sudden you act exactly accordingly to how you stirred it up. I think that's what's happening here. I think the brothers are so stirred up by Joseph. And they're away from him, they're away from their father, and all they're doing now is they're just ruminating, complaining, bickering, and talking about what they'd love to do to Joseph. And all of a sudden, there he is. And it says, they wanted to kill him. They said to one another, oh, look, here comes that dream expert. Love that little Hebrew sarcasm. So now, come on. Let's kill him. Let's throw him into one of the pits. We can say that a vicious animal ate him, then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Ha ha ha. Let's see if the dreamer can dream when he's dead. When Reuben heard this, he tried to save him. He tried to save him from them. Why would Reuben, do you think, have a little hesitation? Who is Reuben, by the way? Remember Reuben? What did he do? Yeah, he's the oldest. Reuben knows he's the heir. He should be technically, as the eldest, the heir. Who's he still want to curry favor with? His father, right? He doesn't want to bring grief to his father. In fact, if anything, he probably wants his father to know somehow he rescued him. He saved Jacob's favorite son. Reuben did a horrible crime, remember? What did Reuben do? What's that? Yeah, that's right. You know, he has a stain on him with his father. So look what happens. He says, Reuben heard this, verse 21, Reuben said to them, don't shed blood, throw him into this pit in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him, intending to rescue him from them and return him to his father. See, he's going to go back and rescue him and return him to his father so that Joseph then, he knows what Joseph is going to do. What's Joseph going to do? He's going to tell Jacob, his father, all the brothers threw me in the pit. Reuben is the only one that kept them from killing me. And then he came back and he rescued me from the pit and brought me back. See Reuben scheming? Who's Reuben just like? Just like his daddy. He learned it from the best. And he thinks somehow Jacob now is going to say, oh, Reuben, all your sins are forgiven. You now are the heir of my throne. And he says, when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped off Joseph's robe, the long-sleeved robe that he had on. Then they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty without water. These pits sometimes were used to catch animals. You would sometimes have these big pits. You'd put something over it, right? And brush or something. Animals would fall in these pits. And that's what they did. They captured them. They sat down to eat a meal. And when they looked up, there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic gum and balsam and resin going down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, what do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And his brothers agreed. Let's make some money off this. What a bunch of good brothers, man. When Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit, sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites. By the way, archaeology has shown that at this period of time, around the 18th century BC, this was what slaves went for. They went for about 20 pieces of silver. It's one of the internal facts of the text, by the way, that when people were trying to determine who really wrote the book of Genesis, there were a lot of critics that would say there's no way Moses wrote this. This had to have been written much later. One, because they didn't believe that handwriting existed during this time, only to find out that it did. And then you begin to see these internal facts, like the price of a slave at this time, 20 pieces of silver, just like Genesis says. So they sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. Isn't that interesting? All according to whose plan? God's plan. What does God know is going to happen? If you think about this from God's vantage point, what does God know is going to happen? There's going to be a famine that's going to come. He knows that. And God looks at, this is how I see it. And you can take a different view. This is kind of, my thinking has, in my mind, kind of evolved a bit on this. I see God not causing all the natural disasters of the world. I see that God knows the natural disasters are in the world, and he coordinates events in such a way to fulfill his purposes through the disasters that are going to happen. And I think God knows there's a famine coming to the land of Egypt for 7 years. I'm going to tell Joseph in a dream that's going to happen. He's going to get discovered. He's going to get elevated. He's going to become the head of, I think God knows all of this, but he's working through all the ordinary events of human beings, all the choices human beings are making, and God is orchestrating his plan along with the decisions of human beings. And it says, where am I at? 29. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, the boy is gone. What am I going to do? So they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a male goat, dipped the robe in blood. They're so quick to come up with a solution. Isn't that amazing? Why are they so fast to come up with the solution?
They've been thinking about it.
This is how they think. This is how deceivers think. How fast can you come up with a lie? Y'all ever come up with a lie real fast? Isn't it amazing how fast you can come up with something that didn't exist in your head, but in the moment it comes up and you're like, you ever said this afterwards? That was pretty good. Man, how did I come up with that? You came up with that because you're a liar. So liars do. Liars get real good at coming up with lies.
He did it.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. They sent this long sleeve robe to their father and said, we found this. Examine it. Is it your son's robe or not? Is this the robe, Daddy? We couldn't really tell. Is this the robe that you gave him? Because we just found it covered in animal's blood. Or in Jacob's blood. And he says, his father recognized it. It is my son's robe, he said. A vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, he said, I will go down to Sheol to my son, mourning. And his father wept for him. In other words, Jacob is saying, nothing can bring joy to my heart again. I'm going to go down to the grave. Sheol is the grave. It was the Jewish conception of the afterlife. There really wasn't a fully developed doctrine of an eternal afterlife of like hell or Hades yet. There's elements, there's shades of it, but it was the grave. I'm going to go to the grave and I'm going to take this. I will never have peace in my heart again. I will never have joy in my heart again because look what's happened to my son. What have these boys done to their father? They have grieved him deeply. They have destroyed his life. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guards. Dun, 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 dun. Here's the setup. He gets sold to exactly the person he has to be sold to. Because being sold to Potiphar now is going to set Joseph up for an enormous opportunity in the future that he has no idea is coming. So let's do a couple takeaways here. What is one takeaway from this chapter that all of us can draw from? What would you say? If you're doing your application, we just walked through what did it mean back then. We talked about what does it always mean? What are some principles in this? What's a takeaway about what does this mean for us today?
God's plan will be accomplished.
God's plan will be accomplished, Dean. One way or the other, God's plan. You cannot thwart the determined plan of God. That's right. So we take great comfort in that. What else?
Even know that when you can't see it, and when you're down, God's moving and working and orchestrating.
God is up to far more than we give him credit for. Right? He is operating behind the scenes. There's right now stuff happening in all of our lives that we wouldn't even know. Do you know that? We don't even know it. Stuff is happening. That's right.
I think the thing that stands out is we know that he had an ego, right? And God revealed too much of this plan to him too early. It would have fed into that ego and listen, it could alter time, right? I mean, you think about it.
That's exactly right. Blessing that comes too soon, will lead to ruin. That's exactly right.
I think about where I'm at in life, and it's like, I told my wife last night, I said, did you ever think, I mean, we've been together 37 years. Did you ever think we would be here?
What'd she say?
Listen, my wife's awesome. So she's like, listen, she goes, I know you had the potential to do it. I said, you gotta understand, it really is nothing to do with me. It's alignments of people in favor of God.
Right.
It's the only, there is no answer.
Right.
I have no education to do what I do. I have no way to. But if God would reveal that, and it's one thing my wife's good at is clapping back and saying, knock it off, right? Why are you good at that? Knock it off.
Yeah.
And don't let your ego get in the way of whatever.
Right.
10 years ago, probably would have been a different me.
It reminds me of the proverb I've told you before. It's one of my favorite proverbs. It goes, prepare your horse for battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. That we are responsible to do all that we can to make preparations, to work hard, to go to battle. But when the battle is won, who gets the glory? God gets the glory. That marriage, those children, that business, those grandchildren, those great-grandchildren, that life you have. Yes, you worked hard. Yes, you made good decisions and bad decisions, and God used them all. But at the end of the day, victory belongs to the Lord. Don't look at yourself in any way and say, look what I did. It is God gets the glory for my life, for my success, for my business, whatever that thing is. The last thing here, and I want to make sure we're clear on it, is one of the takeaways is envy is a sin that leads to nothing but misery. That if I find in my heart the stirrings of envy, of jealousy, of wishing I had something someone else has, not being grateful for what I have, not celebrating what I have and where I am, it will do nothing but cause misery to my bones and my heart. And it will not just affect me, it will slowly begin to affect and rot the things around me. We have to be very, very careful, right? I know for me, this is a major lesson for me. You know, I am wired to achieve. I'm wired to pursue. I'm wired to see and go after. My favorite day of the year is January 1. Why?
Such a goal.
Yeah, I mean, they're already written by January, but I get to set my new goals, my new objectives, right? My rocks. I get to set them and go, this is what I'm going after, right? And boy, I love it. And there's nothing wrong with pursuit and ambition. Be careful. Because when I look over here and I see this person or this person or this person get that opportunity, oh my gosh, my buddy just spoke for Google. Are you kidding? Right? And I get to go listen to his message like, I could have done that. Right? Just being honest. It's so easy just to look at the landscape and go, how did he get that opportunity? How did she get that opportunity? How did they get picked up by that publisher, right? And this is a message from my heart when I see this, is learning to be content and to be grateful for where I am in the moment and realizing that even when it's tough, this is preparation time, right? It's preparation time.